My name's Darrell Webster. I am one of the members at Regarding 365. We're a team of writers and people who are interested in tech. And I've got Lorian Strant and Alistair Pugin, and of course we have Dan Stevenson, who's furiously just changing a few minor tweaks and stuff at the beginning. But this is going to be a Q&A session, but it's a slightly different format. And we are going to open up with something of an interactive activity to make it look like we're really into this. We're going to try and do something of a freeze frame that looks like you're all madly clapping. So what I want you to all do is just stand.
We're just preempting that's a really successful session. So
Yeah. It's just to make you look like you're clapping at the beginning so that if you, yeah. All right.
On this side, stand like this row, stand like that.
Have your hands like this.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah.
Open.
Yeah, so the idea is, let's demo it, guys. So you're open, you're closed, and I'm open. So it looks like we're in mid-clap.
Wait, we need to take a photo, because I told my mother...
So everyone's hands out.
I told my mother I'd get a standing ovation, so...
Yeah, and don't be shy. Like, I know we're not asking you to hold hands, but just...
All right, come on, everyone, let's get clapping.
Awesome, great.
All right, thank you. Oh, they did it. They did it. Excellent. We're already off to a good start. So I do want to try and explain this format, and forgive us. We had a brilliant opportunity, a last-minute opportunity. You might have seen this session appear on the schedule quite quickly at last minute. Did you just guys bump into it? No, just sort of...
I did.
You did? Yeah. You said, hey, why don't we? ... Anyway, so the format, we are going to do a bit of introductions, which we kind of have. Dan Stevenson is the principal GPM, and I'm terrible with three-letter acronyms and remembering people's titles, but it is Group Program Manager.
It is, yeah. Microsoft has this thing where we have engineering titles designed to make us hard to poach because they're inscrutable to every other company in the job market. So it's impossible to know what I do.
How do I match that person with that? Yeah. Your role?
I'm Group Product Manager at Lorian Strant Consulting, so I'm also hard to poach.
I like your other title. He's Consultant Prime.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a Transformers nerd, so I thought when I started my consulting practice, I originally went, oh, I'll just go Principal Consultants, what we all do. I thought, no, actually, I'll try it a bit different, go Consulting Prime. It means the same thing, it's a bit of a nerd thing, so.
Because he is the only consultant too, so, yeah. Alistair.
Is this thing on?
Yes.
Alistair Pugin out of South Africa. I'm not British, Kiwi, or Australian, even though everyone seems to think I sound like one of the three.
You sound very different.
You sound very South African.
I do evangelism around technology, so I don't know if that's a title. I know he was the artist formerly known as the Cloud Mouth, because he's changed it now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Symbol now.
Yeah. So yeah, is that it, Darrell? Do you need more from me?
No, that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
You're well introduced. If you want to get more familiar with any of us afterwards, within limits, feel free to do so. So the format, we are going to try and make it a Q&A session, but it's also something of an interview. So it's like we've got Dan on stage and we're trying to get through something of a behind-the-scenes format. We're going to have our questions in 4 sections following those sections. So introducing us, or introducing the Microsoft Teams team. Cue the jokes about teams and groups and squads and the like.
Triplicate when I'm in the Microsoft Teams team.
I'm in the Microsoft.
Yeah, I'm on the Teams team and Teams.
Yeah.
Team.
And we work a lot with the groups. But we don't work with this. Nobody else does that at Microsoft. So.
No, that's
what we were
right.
trying to do in our webcast yesterday when we were hoping to have Christoph from the groups group and then Dan from the Teams team arriving, but we had this prepared joke and it just didn't pan out. So I got some laughs now. Good.
But did you groupify? Because apparently
It is Groupify.
Groupify.
And
Hashtag
Teamify.
Okay.
Teamify as well.
Teamify.
Yeah?
No, Teamify is based on Groupify.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's a small T, or is it this T, or is it this T?
Well, it's the Teams team. Was
Okay.
it? Anyway. We get it. Okay. So we are going to introduce the Microsoft Teams team. So there's some questions around that, trying to understand who created this beastie thing that's really popular right now. And is this Blurple?
Blue-purple. And this is more purple than blue-purple.
Yeah.
But our official color is a blue-purple. They make a plastic coat spray paint in blue-purple. And I went to Home Depot, which is a hardware store, and I bought a brick. And over the course of several weekend nights where my kids and wife were very confused, I gave it multiple coats of plastic coats. I have an official Teams brick of justice sitting on my desk.
Brick of, what is it? Okay, here's the first unofficial question. What is a brick of justice?
I don't know. I've yet to find a need for it.
Okay, so your team have
it's just
behaved?
there, just,
Yeah.
oh, have you seen my brick?
So if the team's team created blurple and yours is now more purple than blue, is that blue?
Violet.
Violet, okay, we'll go with that. Your second section of questions is going to be the journey of feature requests to development. So who here, I'm not going to try and do this too often because speakers kind of do that. I want to see a show of hands of who has submitted something to user voice. Shush. Is that all? Is that all? Do you just all madly tweet at Microsoft Teams and say,
No, the rest
I'd
of
like
them
this,
just
please?
upvoted.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
All right, yeah. Well, I'll show you at the end of the slide where you can do that. The third section, user adoption. I'm really interested about what Dan has to say about how Teams has been adopted. What's that journey like? And maybe he's got some customer stories, some stats, and some things to share with us. And some general questions and responses to the announcements in the keynote and other sessions. And look, I'll have to admit, I've been so busy, I've only attended 1.5 sessions. So really the format is this. We ask some questions, but we want to turn it over to you throughout this session. So we'll ask a few questions and then we'll turn it over to you. So if you can keep your questions to the section topic, and it'll be right there on the screen, then you'll see it. And of course, Dan does have some interesting things to show us, demos, stats, lively stuff.
Well, we'll see, yeah. I thought I'd start with that, actually.
Sure.
And that may create some fodder for the questions
Absolutely,
we have coming up later.
We'll just
All right, so
swap
let
this.
me try and guess
So
which
it's
button
number
to
7?
push.
Number
2?
7? Oh, number 7.
7, that's what you meant.
Yep.
We good? Oh, yeah, I love when that happens.
Go into duplicate
I
mode.
love when that happens.
So just in case you didn't remember what the Windows logo looks like,
That could
kind
have
of like
been-
that and kind of like this.
It could have been more embarrassing. All right. Okay, this is just a slide about me that I used in another session, just by way of introduction. This is, where's the PowerPoint people when you do? There we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right. I've lived in some of the cities on the lower left, aim to live in a few others over time. My kids ride sheep. It's just a thing we do at the state fair, and I had to fudge my son's age to get him in this year, but it paid off because he got first place. I think it's because he's kind of compact. And just really held on. We just told, and he came off, crying, but he got first place. It was great. And afterwards, he said he was very brave. So yeah, so that's how it works. I've been at Microsoft for a really long time, as it turns out. I started in the enterprise storage division in Windows, which was a spin-off that was building a NAS appliance based on Windows Server 2003. I did that for a little bit, and then we actually got kind of pulled back into the core Windows team, and I worked on file systems, backup and restore. My first big conference was probably TechEd 2005, or maybe WinHack around then, where I used to demo backup and restore by smashing hard disks in vices after backing them up and then restoring. I use the Vice at home now. After a journey through Azure and Windows Phone and Hotmail and a few other groups, ended up in what was Communicator for about 6 months, then became Link, then Skype for Business. And about 2 years ago, actually 2.5 years ago, I was privileged to be in one of the incubation teams that turned into Microsoft Teams. I did that incubation for a quarter, then went back to my day job, and like 9 months later, we all kind of came back together, and a few things across the company merged in and created what was actually at the time called Skype Spaces, right? Yes, it was TeamSpace and Skype Spaces, then Skype Teams, and then just because we hadn't changed the name enough, like a Lake Wobegon story for those who know that, we had to change it again to Microsoft Teams a few weeks before we launched our preview.
I remember that, Dan, because I was actually helping to do some of the promotional filming, and we went through the name, and then they said, oh, can you just drop in and do that again with Microsoft Teams?
Yeah.
We're just trying it on, just to see what it looks like.
No, it was more than trying it on. All right, so a few things that are going on this week. I thought I'd just recap a little bit. This is my second to last session. 3 main points we've been sharing about Skype and Teams. We're committed to Skype for Business. I think you're all here to talk about Teams, which is great, but I just want to reinforce we're shipping another version of Skype for Business on-prem server next year. It's a full refresh version. Updates to the clients, continued support and investment in Skype for Business. Teams is ready for moving from, the whole point of this is, Skype moving to Teams. Teams is ready for users to move from Skype to Teams for certain scenarios, and it'll be even more ready as time passes and we add more capabilities. We've gotten some of the big ones out of the way, like dial-in conferencing, which is a really big one for us. And then Microsoft is ready to help with the journey from Skype to Teams. And there's a URL there you can go to. There's another one that's just about Teams called successwithteams.com. Those sites cross-link each other. One is how to, the journey from Skype to Teams. The other is deploying and adopting Teams. We have more investments, or we have a lot of investments already on the Teams side for IT admins, but we have more coming around compliance, management, and administration. Some of those were previewed this week, more like PowerShell commandlets and stuff. You'll just see shipping, Graph API support, things like that, shipping over the coming months. And then it's just been interesting seeing around the conference how everybody is just kind of getting on the bandwagon, integrating into and supporting Teams. I was telling our VP just yesterday, the SharePoint team is like all over us in a really good way. It's not just files, which is great, doc library, but the integration of pages, I think that's going to be a killer app for Teams. If you think about what SharePoint did over the last 25 years, or 20 years, however long it's been around, 15, in terms of revolutionizing first just shared storage and then collaboration portals, Teams can really build on that capability and build on a lot of that knowledge and even the ecosystem around that. We have lots of partners and customers who've been building on top of SharePoint. So if we can take Pages, including the new modern UI for Pages, and surface those as tabs in a team, your team now has your site, your portal, next to your conversations from Teams, next to your files, also from SharePoint. We're working on an integrated viewer there, so all of the other long tail functions from SharePoint, like managing workflows and check in, check out, those will show up in the Teams file tab next to Power BI and Planner and Trello and everything else, all within Teams. So we're pretty excited about that.
So Dan, there's another announcement this week about SharePoint having a viewer for multiple different documents. So you can leverage that, can't you?
I can demo it too. But yeah, I can. It is very nice. And that's the point. Like, we have a competitor, a few, but we want Slack. And look, they came at the problem from a different perspective. They came at it from, in my mind, from focusing on a small team and going up. We came at it from the company, kind of enterprise going down. Both have their merits. You can kind of see the constraints that those models have created on both sides. One of the other things that we brought to the table was everything we're doing is part of the platform. It's part of O365, part of AAD. On Windows, reasonably well integrated into Windows. That's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it means when we want files, we have files. When we want compliance, we have compliance. It also means like when we want phone auth from the Azure AD team, well, we're not going to go off and build our own phone number auth. Why would we want to ever do that? We want them to do it. But we have to get in line with all the other high priority things going on. That's just one example. So in the end, I think it's a really big blessing for us, but certainly compared to some of these other guys. But it does, of course, kind of limit a little bit what we can bring out and when. So a little bit about how we actually use Teams in Teams, because I'm on the Teams team.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
So we do all of our meetings in Teams. Generally channel meetings, although cross-team ones are scheduled meetings. We've been doing that for a while. It's been buggy for a while. We're fixing and filing bugs in the middle of meetings. We have this kind of meta experience using the product where we're just talking about the product and how to fix it while using it with the people who are going to be fixing it. Almost all of our one-on-one and team communication is in Teams. Occasionally some folks will pop out into an email, and I'm usually the one who harasses them or somebody else who harasses them. And stuff comes into us over email, but we're actually really good at dumping that into the channel through the email channel feature. We do have pretty heavy use of chats, but we also try to encourage people to move from chats to channels when they have something they want to share more broadly. It creates an information overload problem in certain cases. Sometimes you don't know which chat to go to, which channel to go to. We have some features coming out around links, so you can share a link to a channel or a link to a conversation in a channel. I think that'll really help in terms of discovery and maintaining that binding so that everybody can follow where things are going. Right now, actually, a lot of people just mention somebody and says, hey, this is the channel I was talking about. You should come here and talk to us. I'm not going to share a whole ton of numerical specifics about our team or our usage. Those are competitive things for us. But I'll say that we have a few core teams, engineering teams at Microsoft that we are on or work with. Those teams have a few hundred-ish people on them. We also have many smaller teams for different groups. I have my own team for my group of people. Some of the most managers probably have their own separate team. That's not really good. We do that because we want to have those private conversations, But the thing we really want, and I'll talk about what we all really want, is private channels. That's going to really help when we deliver that. We're not the largest nor most active team at Microsoft. We were, of course, in the beginning. But some of our colleagues in other engineering groups have really taken off and become really active users. It's actually really nice to see that. A little bit about our team, and these are slightly doctored screenshots. These are not, you think of them as kind of, a palimpsest of what's going on in our team. They're not 100% accurate because I'm trying to protect the innocent here, and some of the guilty. We have about 100 channels. We have channels by job function. You'll see one there. You don't see it here, but we have one like for design. Architecture is kind of a job function. It was kind of a cross-team thing. We have channels by product area, so you can see bots. That's the team that builds bots. They have a bots team where they talk about bots with bots. We have some cross-team things like announcements, because we didn't want to have all that stuff, new people joining, anniversaries, going into general, so we put them in announcements. We've been doing this for months, and then Slack a couple weeks ago says, now we have an announcements channel. It's like, okay. I guess we could ship that too.
They announced that they have an announcement
okay,
channel.
all right, you guys are going to kill me. We have fun stuff, which is where people post fun stuff. Competitive analysis, like our analytics channel, it has, and I can't show you this, but we have like a Power BI dashboard pinned as a tab. We have another telemetry and analysis system we use. We have that pinned as a tab. We have some slicers in Excel. We have that document pinned in there. So we use within the channel, we tend to tailor and customize it a lot. These are some of the bots, tabs, and connectors we have. You notice connector-wise, Yammer and user voice show up. I use Yammer to keep in touch with what people are saying about Microsoft Teams across the nearly 200,000 people at Microsoft. And user voice to keep in touch with you as you send feedback in. We have a pretty good integration where that stuff comes in. We don't always do everything that we're asked to, but we try to. Usually we don't, but at least not immediately. But we really try to look at it and pay close attention. And this is a great connector to bring that stuff in. For the core teams team, we have a dedicated team just for live site and service site reliability. It has a feeder channel in the main team. People have a live site or they're worried about it, or, oh, auth is broken, what's going on? Is it Microsoft only? They may post there. You can imagine that leads to a desire for shared channels, which I'll also mention is one of the things that we want. This team is really tightly controlled and managed. They have tabs in the main channel in the general channel about roles and responsibilities, escalation pathways, all the things you'd expect an ops, reliability, servicing team to really care a lot about. They also enforce a very strong template in how they expect people to post messages into channels and introduce an issue, triage an issue, and then close it, and they have a little footer they put at the bottom. Some of that I think we'll end up implementing programmatically through like a custom app or something, but it's interesting that they've developed a set of practices about how they specifically manage that channel. These live site incidents can go hundreds of messages long over a month or two. You have Sev 3 that kind of burns, and we think we fixed it, or the other people fixed it, and then it pops up again, and we rehydrate it. It's actually nice to have threads that way because it's not that we have a ton of live site issues, but they do happen, and it's really good to be able to bounce between those. And then we link to a postmortem for all the issues, but they put that in another channel because the postmortems can just as easily go into hundreds of replies, and those are far less tractionable in terms of responding. It's talking about what we should do next, blah blah blah. So we use the link, the ability to share a link to a thread, and so at the end of an issue in the main live site channel, they write postmortem happening here, and it's a link to that conversation that they just started. So they have this kind of formulaic way of managing live sites. And these are a few of the bots, the apps that are in our live site team. Some things that we really want, and this is a little self-fulfilling, you can imagine these are things we're trying to work on as well. Private channels, so that you can have, within your team, it's how you operate. You have a group in that team that is a subset that has their own channel or set of channels that nobody else gets to, just the people who are in that subset. Our our leadership team wants that. I want that for my team. I don't really need all the other folks coming in and looking at what we're doing. Shared channels is another one. We don't do a ton of work outside of the company. We do work with our MVPs and some of our preview customers, but we do a lot of work with other teams internally, and we would really like to have shared channels. Instead, what we end up doing is creating teams that are kind of V-team teams, and then we have kind of blurry blended membership across them, so some folks from Team A may also be on Team B, and there may be like a channel on Team A where you post stuff that you want the B folks to know about, and some of them get that and move it over, and then we end up kind of cross-pollinating. So people are on a lot of teams as a result. It's not great. We definitely would like shared channels. Read-only channels, that's more of a command and control kind of thing where we want that general channel. And actually you can do that now with general where only owners can post to general. So that we actually kind of have already. Sharing chat history, I demoed that yesterday. So you were in a group chat with 2 people, and I am with these guys, and I add Darrell to it. I can then choose to share the previous history of that private chat, all of it, or just a specific day window. If we were talking about them last week, and there's a decided finally we would add them, I can do that. And then we want desperately participant controls in meetings. Because we do all of our big meetings in your ship rooms, conference calls, that kind of thing. And there's always somebody shuffling papers, typing on the keyboard, eating lunch.
Or fixing bugs, like you said.
Yeah, or going to the bathroom, something like that. And so we just want the SFB is great. It's got the, find the person, see whose microphone is on, and mute them or mute all, and then unmute the one person who's talking. So a bunch of these things were, and the stuff towards the bottom, it's actually either there or almost there. The stuff towards the top is harder and longer, but we're to work on, but we're definitely working on that. Okay, just a little bit about usage, then we'll get to the main part. I just want to prep this material in front. Is that okay? Or do you want to?
Perfect. No,
yeah, okay,
fine.
all right. Some of the things, so we look at our telemetry a lot. We spend, we have a whole team actually, the data analysis team is under me. We have a data scientists, we have data analysts, we have a really robust telemetry pipeline, a lot of dashboards. We do that, use those for managing the business. We also use, and of course for live site, so when we see peaks and 404s from a service or something, we try to swarm on that or figure out what service is doing that. But we also use it for product development, looking at, for example, flighting experiments, or we expect people to follow a particular journey through the product and we see if that actually happens, or we expect certain correlations to result in certain behaviors and we can track and see that. I won't get into very specific numbers here. We're still working on those internally. Every week we have a new way of looking at it. But I will tell you some general trends we've seen. In terms of driving retention of your users, get them on the mobile app. That also means that they're accessing Teams off hours, asynchronously. They're engaging. It's kind of a follow the sun, even for themselves. It's a really good way to keep people engaged ongoing. It's a really good app, too. I really enjoy the mobile app. Another thing that really helps is if people, when they first come into Teams, they're on a team. If they're not on a team, then they try and create one, or they're not sure, they discover one. So to the extent that people can get invited in, or maybe we can do something to maybe make a team there anyway, that really helps with retention. There's a critical mass team size. Teams of 3 don't really do much. So teams of 6 actually can be really productive and send dozens of messages a day, but you want to get above a reasonable critical mass. And file sharing is also a real big retention driver. People put their files there, and then that's where they go to find their files. Factors that actually don't really impact retention significantly, or at least nothing we can quite correlate yet, the mix shift between channel messages and private chat messages. We have some tenants, some customers, who are almost exclusively using channel messages. Almost everything they do happens in a team. They're using a little bit of chat. They're not really using Skype for Business. It's just in the team. Others are more equally distributed, right? They'll have and Microsoft's a little bit like this. We'll have a ton of stuff in private chat and also a lot in the team. The number of messages may actually be more in private chat than in a team, but in terms of the number of people viewing and participating, it's about the same. You tend to be a little more chatty in a private chat and a little more kind of eloquent, long-winded in a team. But that doesn't seem to impact retention too much in the product. And then the number of channels per team, that varies widely. Our team has 100 channels. Plenty of teams out there with 1 or 2 channels. Those, I think, are really good candidates for being private channels in another team. And at some point, we want to enable that type of migration and combination stuff. But it doesn't really have a strong impact. Just to show you a little data. I showed this in a session on adoption with Caruana Gatima the other day. These are 2 different customers. The number of users over time. My taskbar is showing. Isn't that awesome? All right. Well, anyway, you can see my taskbar. I use Chrome. The x-axis is time, and the y-axis is users. The purple company had an IT-led adoption where they kind of kept it just in IT for a little bit. And then they flipped the switch and advertised to everybody, put up a bunch of posters, websites, that kind of thing, and got everybody. That's pretty much everybody in the company. And then it goes down a little bit over the summer and stuff like that. The other company listed there, and these are normalized for scale. They're not the same number of users. The other company listed there actually just turned it on and just kind of let it go and grow. And it was a very interesting growth. And Microsoft, I don't have Microsoft here. I have it on the next slide. But Microsoft's growth was kind of in between those. and is still growing. It's just, we're
Well, just before you go
Yeah.
from there, Dan, so what does growth and adoption mean in that figure? Is it usage and is it that people are logging in? Or?
This is number of active users, and so we have
Active
a fairly standard definition of activity that I think correlates well with how active usage is measured on any other service. I'm not going to actually say the specifics,
Of course.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but it's active users. It's more than just signing in won't count. Yeah.
Good.
Just leaving it open in the background won't count for active users. Now this is interesting. These are the new users per week, I believe, or at least per unit time over a period of time. The green and the purple are the same companies from before. The green one was the mostly organic growth, but guided by IT, and you can see it was kind of jumpy. And then the purple is the one where IT led it. And the purple one had pretty much one jump right here, and then a few more coming in, but this is the big one. The green one, it seemed like they had some kind of events and some factors driving that, but nothing specific. And then the orange one is Microsoft. And so we had some big events, obviously big release event. When we first started the product, we rolled it out to more and more parts of the company. So it's interesting to see, though, that aside from those big events, there's always this kind of steady state growth of the delta. I think also what you're seeing on the far right for Microsoft is college hires. So just a little bit ago. Okay. I think this is my last graph slide. Just a little bit on the daily activity cycle. We have, it's interesting, this is by local hour. So 0 is midnight, or 24 is midnight as well. You see there's a dip at lunch across all the clients, particularly the desktop client, and most of the users during the day are on the desktop or web client. But if you look at mobile, it's smoother. People take their phone to lunch, and they're on their phone later at night. That's really, and this is normalized for local time zone hour for the users. There's going to be a lot of noise in here, but I did this over 4 weeks across many, many, many users. It's interesting to see that the difference between kind of 7 o'clock to midnight for all clients versus 7 o'clock to midnight for mobile. People are really bringing their mobile phones with them, of course, but using Teams as part of that and staying in touch. I didn't get to do it, but I wanted to do an analysis on the thread reply or chat reply latency and how that shifts over the course of the day. I have a theory that at night people are still checking and sending messages, but the latency between somebody saying something and another person posting on that thread is much longer. I hope it is for all of our sake.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, cool. That's it for my slides.
Well, that's great. Let's
Happy to
take
switch
that
back to you
screen back.
guys.
Yeah, so that's number 5. Pow. Yeah, we're good. And we'll race through a couple of these because we've kind of explained the format. But just as a reminder, Dan will say a few things. So he's just said a few things. Yes, this is your chair, I guess.
I don't care.
So this is the time where we start to get into the sections about questions, and hopefully some of the things that Dan has said have also triggered a few more questions in your mind. So we're going to ask him a few questions and dig in a bit deep, but each of these sections, we're going to give you a chance to walk up to the mic there, and the guys here are going to come down with the roving mic too and give you an opportunity to ask some questions. So
The way we'll do the roving mic, because we've only got the one in the middle and this one, is we'll ask you to actually go to the sides, and then Alistair and I will basically just switch mics as we go through.
We have another mic.
Oh, we do? Oh. Then disregard everything I just said.
thank you, AV guy. Right. Because we were so coordinated, some of these things have been already answered. So I
Excellent.
struck some lines through, but I really found some of those internal stats and the way that Microsoft Teams team is using Teams to be quite.
That will get old.
I'm trying not to.
No, not for a while.
No.
Yeah.
I actually had a question about context. So what we've been used to over the last, probably 20 years of computer usage is having multiple applications open. And then we've gotten to tabs where within Skype for Business we have multiple conversation tabs, browsers, multiple tabs, emails, we've got multiple emails open. Whereas in Teams, you kind of your focus changes because you're going from context to context. How's that been a change for yourselves within the Teams team doing it first, but also other users? How they handle it?
Yeah, it's good and bad, and I think it's an area we need to do a little more work in. I think what it has done is actually increased responsiveness. It's kind of hard to just leave something open for a while and make sure you, like opening 10 emails and then kind of in 10 different windows and then eventually responding to them. So it's definitely like if I'm in a chat and somebody messages me, I'll try and finish that chat before I move on to the next one. But there are times when I really want to have two things up at the same time, or I want to be able to, when I'm writing a chat to somebody, actually copy something from another chat or another channel. We get a lot of, actually on user voice, it's one of the higher priority items we hear is kind of multi-window layout, undocked chats, that kind of thing. I think coupled with that is just performance of switching between different chats or different channels, which we've been improving. But actually, I do think we should do more around keeping things, being able to do things side by side. Yeah, I think it's an area we are definitely looking at investing more in.
Well, I think it's actually not necessarily a weakness. It's actually, we've become so accustomed to multitasking that, we're actually doing things half-assed these days because we're actually not paying full 100% attention to what we're doing. So one of the things I've actually enjoyed about that is, for example, when you're doing a video conference, I can't then have multiple conversations going. I've got just the video.
Well, I totally agree, and that was my point about it actually I think increased responsiveness because you're really in the moment, and it's not like you have to write a really long email either. You're writing a quick chat. The meetings one is interesting because I end up, for better or worse, going to a lot of meetings, and I don't need to be fully in those meetings. And when they were Skype for Business meetings, it actually was kind of nice because I could keep Teams open and do my work in Teams, and I'd have a Skype. And now they're all Teams meetings, of course, appropriately. But we actually can, when you click away from the meeting, it'll minimize it into the top of the chat rail there. And so you can still see and hear what's going on and go about your business elsewhere in the app while you're doing that. You got to pay attention, though.
Yes.
So Lorian almost introduced a new feature request, and I did ask earlier about how many people have submitted something to user voice. I wanted to hear a bit about the journey of a feature request and how it goes from that and into production. I know, and to pay a little homage to Supatra. Supatra?
Yes.
Wow, she's done an amazing job curating those. So, but yeah, if you could tell us a bit about that journey.
Yeah. So we get signals of feature requests or things that people want to add to the product through a number of sources. User voice is probably the biggest one in terms of reach. And it's a nice community feature so people can vote and share. And we have a dialogue going on there where, for example, we want to understand a little more about the context around a request. We can then put that question out there and get feedback. So let's talk about user voice first, and I can talk about some of the other signals we get as well. User voice is probably our friendliest signal. So Supatra actually sits literally behind me. She's on my team. We tucked her desk into a corner before we moved floors. And she and we have another community manager, Lori, who looks after our blogs and MVPs. They'll get feedback coming in periodically. We bring that, we use Visual Studio online, of course, for our Visual Studio team services for our engineering management. So we'll bring those requests into Visual Studio, and we're actually working on a system now where we can kind of cross-link back to user voice as well, so that we can have some, when we retire an item in Visual Studio, it's very clear what the feedback item is. So we bring it in, and then our engineering organization has different groups, different sets of people own different features. And so Supatra, myself, some of the other folks will go, or if it's my team, Supatra and I, we'll spend some time talking to them periodically about what the top feedback items are. We've also accumulated a bit of some debt in some of those areas. We've been really busy working in our team and in the Skype for Business team on the big announcement this week and all the service work and client work for that. So we're actually looking at a way that we can pay off some of that feedback debt and feature debt with a bit of a focused push in the future, in the relatively very near next week future, and start making some progress in that. So it's so they come in, they go into our engineering system, they work with the teams on it. If we have questions, and we often do, we go back to user voice and ask for clarification on that. We tend to do UX first design. Almost everything we've built, even what our partners have built, we do the UX mock-up. We're a very experience-driven organization in terms of how we do engineering. So we'll build, I'll just pick on private channels, for example. Before we wrote, or hypothetically are writing a line of code for private channels, we did a thorough UX treatment about how it would behave, how it would hypothetically behave next to regular channels, how in the future it could behave next to shared channels, also in the hypothetical future. And made sure we had the right user experience model in place and that it netted out with everything else in the information architecture in the app. Everything is interconnected, right? You have a private channel. What about the people roster for that private channel? How does @mention change? What if you want to @mention somebody on the parent team, not in the private channel? So we had to think through a lot of the experience things. In the parallel, of course, the developers, the core coding engineers are doing their own analysis and exploration. But before we greenlight anything, we do a full experience workup on that. And we do several iterations on that. We also, I mentioned for partners, so our best partner integrations are the ones where we went to them and said, hey, I won't name one, I'll say, hey, Contoso, we think you should be part of Teams. This is also internal partners. Here's our mock of how we think your application should exist in Teams. One of our first partners we did that with was the education team, where we brought in assignments, the whole Microsoft Classroom into Teams, and turned that into our first vertical solution. And then we iterate, we iterate on the design. As I said, we're kind of laser focused on experience. And then if we need to, we go back to the customer. We also look for other signals. We do user research, we do usability studies. Customers with Premier support have ways of escalating issues to us. Those come in on fire and hot and tend to be more live site bug type things that we pay pretty close attention to. And then I've been getting a ton of requests here, and we have executive briefing meetings and so on. But generally, the best, kind of the biggest funnel and the best funnel is from user voice into Visual Studio and then to the product teams.
And as you mentioned, as you're introducing how you work, that you've got a tab there for user voice, and those requests can come directly into the channels.
Yeah, it's a connector. It just pumps the messages in. We have a feedback channel, and we see those. We can chat about them, whatever. The other interesting thing about how a feature comes out is we will ship a feature and just kind of, some of the features, and we'll just kind of sit on it for a while. So we just want to see, like, we have different rings where we deploy to. So we have like the innermost ring in production, which is pretty much like 100 engineers, 100 people in the engineering team. Next ring is a larger group of Microsoft and some of our IT admin customers externally. Next ring after that is our preview program. Next ring after that is production. I skipped a few steps, but it's kind of like that. We will let some things bake in the rings for weeks until we get feedback. And some other things we push out as fast as we can. Guest access, which we shipped a couple Mondays ago, we pushed that. We were validating for a while, but then when we were ready with our final set of changes, we pushed that through the rings as fast as we could. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we have done a lot of talking so far, but I want to sort of turn this over to the first section of people who may have questions for Dan, just even based on what's been said. But so this is all about what the Teams team does, how they're using Teams, and also the journey about feature requests through to deployment. So feel free to raise your hand if you want a question or come up to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned, Dan, that there will be integration between existing SharePoint and Team. Is this a new feature, or it's on now?
So some of it's already there, and some of it is coming very soon. There's a few things to know. It's SharePoint Online, online multi-tenant, and online DV Next. The SharePoint site needs to be a group site, or associated with the team, and there's now a new capability to groupify legacy sites and convert those into groups that can become teams. The existing capability that is actually in production right now is twofold. One, file storage in a team is on SharePoint, so that's already there, and that's very robust and great to have. And the second is you can add another doc library from another SharePoint site as a tab on a team as a secondary storage source. The thing that is coming is actually two things that are coming. Pages, which is, I can actually show you here in a second. It's beautiful. It's like everything I wanted in an intranet, now inside Teams. And then the news connector, which is a new thing that they announced, I think, at Ignite. And the news connector is actually a connector, an O365 connector, and we're looking at making that a type of app in Teams as well.
Feel free to jump on the demo.
I'll just show you what that looks like. I think it's actually really sweet.
So yeah, the news connector, there is more of a focus from the SharePoint team to bring those news articles coming through. Number 7, and then take button down below. That's the one.
So here I'm actually in a web client, because I'm in a test tenant that has a buddy of mine, Jeremy Masner on the SharePoint team, lent me his account. So this is a team called Tahoe. I've got a channel called General. I've got a tab called Progress. Before I do that, let me just click the plus button here. Do you see that this is add your team's SharePoint pages next to SharePoint doc library? So that's the SharePoint pages is a new one. And so is Forms, by the way. That's a pretty cool one. When I go to that page, what you'll see, as I click, what you'll see is that it's actually going to render the page slowly over the network that is coming straight from SharePoint. And it does a whole nice little, composing animation thing. And this is a page. It's kind of a dashboardy page. It's got a news connector at the bottom, too. This is just a nice, and my interests and stuff, I don't know. It's just, the point is this is a SharePoint page, a modern SharePoint UI page that they've been investing a lot in helping people build. And now we've got that inside Teams. That's great. Now I can, the other thing I would love to do, actually, is make this the default channel for some teams. so that when you come in, you're not in chat, you're in a portal. It's a little controversial. We're kind of a chat-centered app, but anyway, it's nice to have that there so that you've got your portal there right with you.
And you can discuss that page too.
You sure can. I'm not sure if anybody's been discussing it, so I'm
Sure,
not going to open
leave
that.
it, leave it.
The other thing, the third thing that we're doing with SharePoint, or SharePoint is really doing, and they get all the credit here, is the preview stuff you were talking about. And so this is a 3D model of the Space Needle, and because we're using the shared previewer logic from OneDrive and SharePoint, we now can render a lot more document types within Teams. So I've got Space Needle here. I can pretend I'm the Blue Angels flying around it. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of cool. So that was just some of the stuff we're working on, that SharePoint's working on with us.
So currently, when you create a team, you create a SharePoint automatically. Can you stop that and point to existing SharePoint, or you have to?
We cannot. No, we can't, because it has to be. You can, if your existing SharePoint is a group site, you can build a team on that group, but we can't redirect the storage to that site. You'd have to migrate.
Okay. Yeah. Quick question. Can you talk a little bit about federation, guest access kind of thing? I mean, I know it's kind of new, and I didn't even know it was actually released yet. And you just said it a second ago.
Yeah. That's a great question. So I consider federation, guest access, and external meeting join to be kind of 3 points on this triangular spectrum-y thing around getting other people into where I am. Federation is about, and Darrell, I use this all the time now, it's about reaching to somebody where they are in their home tenant, their home organization, and chatting back and forth with them. He's not coming into my team. He doesn't have access to anything in my company. We're just chatting. I just happen to know his SIP address, and it's almost like email. Mm-hmm. That is coming to Teams. It's part of the Skype for Business capabilities lighting up in Teams. So that type of capability is coming. That is not what we just shipped. The second part of that triangle is what we did just ship, which is guest access. And that's about taking somebody who is not on my team and not in my company and bringing them into my team. So it's almost like adding a member in my company to my team, but the person's not in my company. Currently limited, they have to be in Azure AD somewhere. Relatively soon, we'll support MSA. And then as the Azure AD Collab API supports, or Collab service supports, other authentication providers from other identity providers in the ecosystem will support those as well. That is not about federation. That's like, I hire somebody to be a contractor or sign with an agency, and I want 1 or 2 people to come into my team and just kind of live there. It doesn't work very well if you're trying to hop back and forth between multiple tenants, multiple organizations several times a day, or if you're in 10 different tenants simultaneously over the course of the day. We are continuing to invest in that specific feature around reducing the switching time and making it possible to live at multiple tenants at the same time in the same app without having to switch a little, actually like Slack and even better in terms of how that works. Number one fear is we don't want people to miss a message or a call when they happen to be guesting in. The third point of the triangle is external meeting join. And that's, okay, I've got a URL or a phone number, can I get into the meeting? I'm nothing in that tenant, I'm nothing in that team, they invited me to join the meeting. We have the first pillar of that already, right, the PSTN audio conferencing joining. We're adding shortly the ability to, if you have the URL, just join the meeting. And that'll be web client and desktop client over time that you'll be able to do that. Pretty much the way Skype for Business supports. We call it anonymous join or external join. Obviously, it shouldn't take 5 minutes to explain that to a user who's trying to add somebody external and talk to them. We need to bring those scenarios closer together, so it's just very natural and logical. We will get there. We're no way near done. We barely started in terms of our external access features.
Thank you so much for releasing external sharing. I actually just turned it on for our tenant and started sharing to other EDUs. My question is the whole tenant switching thing. I find myself emailing the list instead of putting up communications because people particularly like to work in their own tenant, so they don't get all of the feeds and the notifications. So will there eventually be like a notification on your face that's like, hey, you have one alert?
Yeah, so we call it the pill count right now. It's the white number and the red oval. It's high latency, so it takes a while to get over there, but we will tell you if you have notifications in other tenants. I think I can demo that too. I think I'm logged into Teams here, and you can see I have some guests. And I've got, in Microsoft, my guest account, this is my demo account. Apparently in Microsoft, I've got 1,800 messages I need to go read, which is pretty much par for the course. So that's start. Then we want the actual notifications to come through. So if you click on the bell, you actually see them and you can make a decision to go over. And then next, I want the chats to actually just be a merged list. And the teams, even if it's clicking on that takes a few seconds to kind of ghost the others and bring that one up. Those are all experience goals. The reality of implementing that is a different matter. But as I said, I was just saying, we're on a journey for guest access. We definitely want to bring all those things closer together and more seamless.
Just bear in mind that with external access, still being tested on mobile. So if you're going to switch it on, someone's trying to get hold of it on Android or iOS. It's not available there yet. It does work. I can verify that iOS works. It's still being tested, but it hasn't rolled out yet. So
it's days away.
Yeah.
Right.
Just bear in mind.
Any other journey questions? Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's a question in the line with the from idea to deployment. I guess you have ALM running continuously when you do changes. And in that scenario, you probably want to automatically create new teams, create new channels, set up stuff in there. The question is, when do we get to have these APIs?
So that's another thing we definitely, certainly at Microsoft IT, we definitely like. I didn't have it on my list because I've kind of created all my teams already, and I like testing the UI a little bit. But it's a great question. It's a great request. I don't think we've set a time frame, but relatively soon, we're already working on a set of provisioning commandlets, PowerShell commandlets, backed by the Graph API. So whether you use the commandlet or the Graph API, you'll be able to create team, create channel, add members, daisy-chained all together. I think it's going to be this calendar year. It's coming relatively soon. We're working on that right now.
Hello, is there somewhere we can go to keep track of as you are rolling out these new features? And the other challenge is to know as you are maybe progressing on something, like for example, retention has held us up from a legal standpoint until retention's enabled, and I think I heard that it might be enabled soon, but as a customer, we have no idea where you're at with that. Is there just a feedback of?
No, it's good feedback. Historically, we've had across the Office product set, we've had a fairly sparse public roadmap about what we share, and it tends not to change a whole lot. We only shipped 6 months ago, and we've been adding a bunch of stuff relatively quickly. Adoption has been great. People want a lot more. We have a bug in our process right now around where to go, how we share that information out, the frequency with which we share it, the consistency with which we share it, and making sure people know where to go. We're working on a couple things there, including tying that Office roadmap. I don't know if there's an official Office roadmap. Tying that actually back into our Visual Studio instance. So as we track our features through the various rings, we're able to essentially in real time update the Office roadmap. We will continue to improve on that. I would use, for the time being, user voice, and if you're not a member already, the Microsoft Tech Community. And I'm not sure what the URL for that is, but Microsoft Tech Community.
Techcommunity.microsoft.com.
All right,
and I think you have a little blog space in there for just Teams.
Yeah, we have a few. We have a blog space for Teams and then an Ignite specific blog space.
That's right.
Well.
Yep.
So we're a highly regulated financial, and heard great news about multi-geo this week. How is this going to, when's the team going to consider that?
Yeah, it's on the roadmap, but it's a little bit out. The main challenge we have, aside from SharePoint and Exchange, which are obviously in different shape, better shape there, we need to do a bit of an architecture change in how we build our chat service to use a better shared, not so much more scalable, but more shared storage capability so that we can support multi-geo. That's a long and delicate project an intense project that we have to work on. So it's not going to be right away. I don't think we've published a date on that. We can, under an NDA, we can certainly get into a deeper conversation about that.
I'm going to use my baseball signals now and go.
So just a couple of questions around adoption. Do you find or have any guidance around adoptions for non-tech users? Obviously, we're in a mining organization. We want to expand out the usage of Teams for collaboration. Do you find it'd be better for us to give guidance on how to set up the teams and channels or have that organic growth? We've enabled it and allowing the organic adoption and obviously use it heavily within the technology function. Any guidance on should we be giving them success with Teams site and whatever else resources?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. As you saw in the chart I was showing earlier, And I just chose those companies because I knew who they were, and they happen to have pretty widely different adoption paths. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. There was a session Carol Wanagatimu and Amy Strider from Pepsi and Pune Kaufman from Microsoft did a few days ago on adoption. It was kind of a general change management framework and how IT can be part of that conversation. We're coming up with a site in a box, a SharePoint site in a box that can actually be deployed into a team or just as a standalone site that contains a bunch of user education, how to get started in team stuff. I have a preference. My preference is more the viral growth, but I think it is far more important to figure out what's going to work in the culture of the company, of the organization, even just the physical layout of where, are you an open office company? Is it a single site? Are they multiple sites? How have rollouts worked in the past? And where does this fit into Skype for Business? One of the interesting things here is that if you're a Skype for Business online customer with chat, maybe meetings, you can use Teams now. If you have Slack or something else elsewhere in the company, Skype for Business replacement almost becomes a Trojan horse for Teams. And so that's essentially a top-down deployment of Teams. Skype for Business has gone away. Here's Teams. Go in, make your phone calls here. Oh, it's got Teams and channels and apps and all these other things. To be successful with the viral growth, you have to have people who are going to drive that. Otherwise, it'll fizzle. So probably the better likelihood of success is to do it more top-down. The thing I would suggest is not so much gating team creation at the IT level, but auditing. If people are going a little crazy, creating too many teams or too many teams with too few people, or they're not following the governance procedures, I would go in and audit and send feedback on that and do clinics and workshops. I wouldn't prefer not to gate the creation of teams because I think that'll really stunt the viral growth.
I think too that if you do viral growth, that's good. But if you also spend some time understanding how your people work as a team, communicating how you want to communicate, come up with some scenarios that match how they work, and then they've got the examples of where do I start. And so when they start to create that team, they're going to get more use of the conversations and the standard tags.
You're absolutely right, and I should have said that. But yes, you're absolutely
change
right.
manager, sorry.
Yeah, no, there was, in the session we did a couple days ago, there was a slide with, these are types of teams you can use for HR and for project management and for finance and, of course, software development. I had a whole section there, too, on I think it was recorded, on like success factors. You have to have a group of people who are already working together. They have to have a shared purpose, and they have to go all in and be super committed. Get the app installed, get the mobile app installed, get everybody in and committed and using it with that existing shared purpose and project. So you got an event coming up. Event management's a great way to get started into Teams. It pays off within about 4 minutes of using it because you can just bring more people in, share stuff, start pinning things, changing things. Yeah.
Just a couple of maybe technical questions. Do you guys find it a nuisance where multiple teams can be called the same thing and someone's been asked to join an improvement team and then they look up improvement and there's like 6 of them, they don't know which one to join?
Yeah, it does happen.
Is that something you're working on?
Especially at larger companies. We're releasing soon a naming convention as part of the group service. So you have prefixes, suffixes, and forbidden words. So you can just at least make sure there isn't an HR team. We have, I think, a request somewhere on the backlog around notifying somebody that they're creating a team with the same name. One of our challenges, blessings, is that you can configure Teams not just through our app. You can configure through Outlook, through AAD, through PowerShell, probably through SharePoint. So some of that we do in Teams, and some of that we'll just kind of recommend as a best practice versus actually implement.
And the last quick one, when are you fixing the single sign-on experience across the different apps, so Stream and Planner, all that kind of stuff when you open the tab the first time you got to log in?
We're working on that. It's harder than it would seem. And it's not just within Teams. We're actually trying to reduce the number of auths that users have to do across the whole ecosystem. Yeah, we continue to take almost, I think, monthly, if not weekly, updates on the authentication library from Azure AD to improve single sign-on, guest access, the MSA support, et cetera.
Sorry, will there be a Power BI content pack for usage activities, like similar to what you have?
It probably won't be. There's going to be one for Admin Center. That was announced a couple days ago. Next to all the other reports, you'll see Teams, and I think they're going to do the content pack. That team is doing that. We're going to do some stuff in-app. It won't be Power BI, I think. We'll probably just do some custom reporting widgets. We're working on that right now, actually.
Yeah, I got a question. You mentioned the team size or the special critical mass. Is there something like a limit which you say it doesn't make any sense to use Team for that? There would be Yammer more appropriate or any other tool, or are there any other factors which will influence this?
That's a great question. We have teams, our limit right now is 999 externally. We're testing a higher limit internally, and that should be out relatively soon. We have teams approaching that limit that are effectively using Microsoft Teams. They're also hitting the channel limit, or at least we used to have a channel limit of 100 channels. They're definitely hitting that limit, but they're still reasonably productive. I think and it's just based on experience of talking to people, being on some of these teams, talking to customers. I think once you get over like 600, then the team has to be bound together in some way that makes sense. It can't just be everybody in some giant organization or everybody in a big site. It could be everybody in a company, but then that shifts your topology from being teams with channels to one team, and then you have different channels. It's going to start to fall apart though at 600, 700, 800 in most cases until we have private channels. With the advent of private channels, I think that'll make it easier where I can have an overall team with a few common channels across the team, regular channels, and then clusters of private channels for parts of that team. One of the things we've heard from folks is when we were saying, hey, we don't really need to do private channels, just make another team. They really want to have, and I think this makes a lot of sense, they really want to have that sub-team, that sub-thing, as a child of the parent thing, not as a separate parallel one. They want that design team to be part of the engineering team, the leadership group to be part of the overall team, the event planning committee to be part of the overall team, not something else. It's just not how they want people to think about collaboration, which it's almost a visual thing. Of course, it's a lot more than visual to implement because we want to, over time, enable more finer grained controls over those channels and their memberships and having guests just in private channels, for example. But it was interesting to see how that reflected and how people think about how collaboration applies to their teams.
So one client I'm working with requires me to use Gmail. And when I set a meeting in Teams, I don't get the notification.
Okay, does that work for Outlook otherwise?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll file a bug on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easy to repro. So, thank you.
So we've already done a nice segue through to the user adoption section of questions. We've got another one over here.
Yes, this question is about Go Local. I'm part of a multinational professional services firm, and we're 100% Skype for Business on-prem at the moment. So as we start to plan and try to get some timelines on when we might be able to go online, could you maybe tell us how I can find more information about Go Local, or how long does it take for you to have Teams instances in certain parts of the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for those who don't know, Go Local is actually, I think, our internal name for sovereign data centers or in-country data centers that are separate from our public cloud, in some cases managed by a separate entity than Microsoft for regulatory reasons or to insulate from the long arm of the Attorney General, things like that. I think we've announced that UK and India are happening this year, or relatively soon. We have an internal calendar for all the others, including our China data center. I'd love to share that under NDA and understand how that could meet your needs and where we are.
Yeah, so one more question back there.
Okay, so I work for a very large global company, and Teams is turned on for everybody, and I've been putting together materials to communicate with these users, but Teams is changing so frequently and changing fast, so I don't want to translate all of these communications into 15 plus different languages to communicate with everybody. So how do you guys provide materials that I could send out to users, or how do you suppose I do that? Because I don't want to.
Yeah, so that site in a box that I mentioned is going to have, it's a work in progress in one language right now, but that'll have a bunch of the information. Role guides, adoption guides, day in the life material. We will get that translated. I don't know. I mean, it's just a machine. I don't know how many languages we'll do, but we will translate it like the rest of our help content, so probably the full set. I think that should come out before the end of the calendar year. I think we should see that pretty soon. Also, we're happy to send, we've got a lot of that just sitting around. It's not super polished, but very happy to share that. Or it's a great thing to throw up on Twitter or on the community and ask people to share what they've done.
Put it in the tech community.
I've been getting a bunch of samples from folks, videos they've done, posters, etc. I think that'd be a great
good place to put it.
collage post. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And as you've seen, I've kind of relaxed my questions because you guys are going for it. It's great. The mic?
It's not working.
There we go.
Yeah, it's on. Go ahead.
Okay. About the retention of all the items shared in Teams, how long do you keep it? And is there any setting we can enforce? Okay, how long the items are kept in the online? How do you do discovery of all these items for legal purposes? And if someone goes on litigation hold, does that apply to Teams also?
Okay. Retention is coming soon. Right now, everything's retained forever. We'll have relatively soon retention policies that you can do on a per user and I believe a per team basis as well. So you could expire their chats after 6 months, for example. We have full archiving and auditing, archiving of all the messages in private chats and in Teams, as well as files, and auditing of all the key events, and those are fully discoverable through the Compliance Center. They have been since March. There was a session yesterday at 3 o'clock on compliance in Teams. So you can look that up, and they went through a whole spectrum of stuff there.
Question here. For those of us that are not fully vested into Microsoft technologies using WebEx and Cisco Spark, etc., what are you guys doing, or what do we lose in terms of the Teams productivity suite? Because we do use Office 365 as well. So I'm just wondering, is it something that you're forcing us to go within the Skype?
I'm confused about it. You're saying you use WebEx, but you want to use Teams too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering what we lose, like in terms
Yeah,
of
you would,
integration.
Well, so if you're using WebEx, I mean, it'd be great to have a conversation about what we can do to help with that migration. But let's say you're using WebEx. Okay. So you're Cisco, and so you're using WebEx. You're gonna, for structured meetings, the way people typically set up a WebEx for whether it's a customer meeting or an all hands or whatever. I mean, it's just gonna be in the calendar item, and there'll be a URL there. So if they're using Teams or Outlook to view their calendar and click, they'll go into that. Anything that happens in that meeting is not gonna be part of Teams. They may share a file from a site that is managed as part of Teams, but it's not like they're gonna have the rich conversation going back into Teams. The recording, we have recording now, cloud recording that was demoed on Monday. I demoed it again yesterday in the mechanics session. So we have it internally, we're shipping it relatively soon. So you won't get the recording, transcriptions, and translations of those meetings, but it's not like, we're not breaking WebEx, it's just that there's gonna be a meetings capability in Teams, it's gonna be much richer and included, and then there'll be whatever other URL anybody wants to use for their meeting. And we have no plans, and I don't think we ever will, to do any kind of a chat interop with Jabber or anybody else. Migration is something we're very interested in. Migration from Slack or other things, not to. And so that's something where I think I mentioned we're doing some architecture changes and also building some Graph API support. That's something where I think we could eventually get to the point where we'd have a toolkit for that and then open that up for customers and partners to build on.
Yeah, I have a question. So currently, Outlook supports a favorite group. So how the favorite group experience reflect to the Teams channel?
It's a good question. So groups right now correspond at the team level, not the channel level, but that's also a concept we need to think more about. I believe favorite groups is driven by activity, and I think the graph actually recommends those. And I believe it's only mail activity that causes those to show. So typically, if you have a group that's just teams, then it won't show up in favorite groups. If you have mail going to the group, it'll also show up there. We need to do more together with the groups group in the Teams team to figure out the right way to show these things in the different apps. There are legitimate scenarios where people will want both, and there are other scenarios where they don't. Outlook is also a pretty great way to go manage groups right now, actually, from a UI perspective. So I sometimes do that. And their search is better, although we're fixing ours soon. But yeah, it should be mail-based, the signals, and we're going to do more work to try and make it easier to separate those.
Two questions. One, are hashtags going to be included soon? And the other one is about profiles within Teams and maybe integrating some of the Yammer functionality into Teams.
Oh, good question. So hashtags is on the roadmap. I don't think we're running it internally yet. Definitely something we want to do. You can actually kind of manually do it right now, just search for it, but I'm the only one who actually does that. And then profiles from LinkedIn, yes, I think in Mark's demo, no, I guess we haven't demoed that yet. But it's definitely something we're looking at, is bringing in that. If you think about the life cycle of having a conversation with somebody, there's the pre-call, pre-meeting, where you want to know the last things you talked to them about. If they switch jobs, make sure you actually know that happened, so you can look savvy and congratulate them on that. And of course, LinkedIn is a great source of that information, so we'd love to bring in that profile stuff. That's not just Teams, that's office-wide.
I think you mentioned, or I had a question there about how it might integrate with Yammer too. So what's the plans around Yammer and Teams? Yeah,
Yammer and Teams are really focused on different areas. So and we had a question about scale earlier. Like, I would see Yammer as I think Yammer is a larger company solution, and it's more of a kind of community bulletin board kind of thing, community sharing,
Outer
town
ring?
crier.
Outer ring, is that the term they use?
Yeah, I don't like that term.
Okay.
It's weird. Yeah, I know. I think our CEO came up with it. I haven't internalized it yet. In case he's watching, which would be really odd. So we use Yammer as this kind of broad outreach kind of thing, and then and I have a connector set up for Yammer to watch for the things I want to come in. We've had people ask, can you make Yammer a tab or something? It's an idea. Right now, I think we're kind of swimming in separate directions, so we're okay.
It might be something you can add to that SharePoint page that you can tab in.
Like bringing Skype into Teams, maybe bringing Yammer.
Yeah, I get that.
All
Yeah,
right.
had that question a few times.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many participants does Teams support when you have a team meeting?
Right now, 80, and it'll go higher.
Good question. Yeah, so if you're planning to have one of those large meetings and external meetings, then it's 80 at the moment. Yeah. Oh, yes.
About the APIs and the UI control from third parties, we used to build an attendant app on top of Skype for Business in hidden mode. I figure that's not possible in the Teams app, of course, but how should we integrate into Teams with our attendant app?
So you're using Skype for Business in headless mode or hidden mode, and you have like a Win32 app that's connecting to that to do some business function.
Yes.
On the client side. Yeah, we will over time develop controls, SDKs, et cetera, for Teams. Actually, Levon, one of my esteemed colleagues is here, Levon Ezebov, Director of Program Management for Skype for Business and Teams, particularly on the provisioning, IT administration. I'm sure I'm leaving some things out there. Convergence. He's one of the three, and I think the primary driver for the Skype to Teams upgrade and convergence effort. So you may want to ask him a little bit later also about that specific question. I know that we have a pretty robust ecosystem of both commercial products and line of business applications that are built on the client. And I don't think it really makes sense for us to provide like COM API level compatibility going forward, but I think we do need to find a way to serve those scenarios going forward. And that's going to, this is a journey. We're not forcing anybody to move right now. The apps coexist nicely side by side, especially if it's in headless mode. Like you could use whatever that particular app does, if it's messaging people, even if they're in Teams, they'll get those messages. So, okay.
Interop with Skype consumer. Is it available today or is it on roadmap?
It's not available today, and it is not something we've been talking too much about. We do get requests for it. I think it's something we'll have to take a look at, but it's not something we've specifically committed to.
So I guess under the covers, because that's kind of some of the theme of this talk, is that because there's a lot of similarities between the consumer and the Teams
no,
stack?
I think that's more use case. Right. Just the value of the use case relative to all the other things we have to invest in.
It could be possible, but it's way down.
It's actually going to be theoretically more possible than it was in Skype for Business.
Over here.
Hi, do you know when naming conventions are going to be available, kind of like groups? Prefix, suffix?
Yeah, that's in private preview right now, the naming conventions, and I believe that's in just a few weeks it'll be released. That's at the groups level. It's a PowerShell commandlet. It was in the talk I did yesterday morning on configuring and enabling. I think I put in samples of what the PowerShell looks like. There's an online doc, actually, that you can go and read about that. And that'll let you force, nobody can name their team HR, or every team has to have like the department name in front of it, for example.
Are you going to do, sorry, did you say that Skype for Business is going to be able to inter chat with Teams eventually? Or Like if
Skype for
someone's-
Business and Teams have chat interop and calling interop now.
They have that now.
Yeah, Skype
So-
for Business Online and Teams. Yeah.
Oh, a Skype for Business Online.
And we're
So
we're
on-prem,
going to
Skype for
support
Business.
on-prem as well. Yeah. Is on-prem working now? Not yet. Yeah, we will.
Because I've been telling people since I've been here at Ignite this week, I'm dropping Skype. I'm only using Teams now. So I'm trying to see if I can get more people to move to Teams. But if I can get the Skype, they chat me a Skype and it goes to Teams.
Side by side is a really side by side, whether at the individual level or across the company, is something we're directly supporting and encouraging. It's a great, Teams won't be, depending on where you are in terms of what features you need from Teams, they're not going to be there right now. That's fine.
Yeah. And I have my phone on Skype. I mean, I still need Skype.
Yeah.
I'm just exaggerating, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you can, my phone rings now in Teams, but I can still make phone calls from Skype for Business.
Dan showed me a couple of things yesterday about the way that a user could say, I'm in Teams, but I want to be using Skype for Business, and a few switches. You talk about that a bit?
Sure, yeah. You mean in the admin UI where the
Well,
side-by-side
no, I think
button?
it was even at the app level your guys were showing me yesterday as you were doing
Oh, yeah.
switches.
So you can choose, if you allow the users to choose, they can actually choose whether they want to receive their calls in Teams or in Skype. I can probably show you how I have that set up here. I'm not sure if I've got that UI up here, but we can just take a look.
Yeah, soon, yeah.
Setting calls.
So we'll have time for a couple more questions, and then I'll round it out by where we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, so you see this says preferred calling and chat application. So I can choose, the IT at my company, at least for the time being, has let us decide what we want to have as our primary receiver. And so I can choose for myself which one I want.
So the drop-down list up here.
This is if you're cloud Skype, right? You can't do this on-prem.
As Levant said, though, on-prem support is coming.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. And specifically the interop with on-prem, which is really important. So you can, anyway, the on-prem is, there's a lot of things under the on-prem and hybrid umbrella. A large number of those we will support or intend to support within Teams. I'm happy to talk later if there's any specifics to follow up on.
And that's live now, not in preview?
That's probably in preview, what I was just showing, yeah.
I didn't see it.
No, it's fine, it's fine. It's coming out soon. When we ship calling, that's going to be there. And it's gated by IT, whether or not IT wants to allow. Like, you cannot let your users do that if you don't want them to have the ability to do that.
All right. So I think definitely if you've got other questions, we'll cover how you can get those in. But we are rounding out to the time now, and it's been a pretty amazing session for being able to ask these questions. For those of you who haven't put in your feature requests at all, or even seen some of those discussions in user voice, this is how you can get involved. And when you are making those submissions, then you can vote for existing ideas, submit new ideas, rate them, have comments, and there is also a link for participating in user testing. A screenshot there of the docs, there we go, yeah, docs.microsoft.com, and there is a whole section there on Microsoft Teams which will direct you to support documentation, adoption documentation. It's got references to success with Teams. Those are all really useful things to get yourself started. And lastly, thank you very much, Dan, for joining us, and thank you guys for helping out with the mics. Thank you for your questions.